was COVID. I created an Instagram account. It's still there. It's called The Gate of Trust. And I just put out these 5-minute clips on Instagram on Shabbat. And then I just started to feel a real yearning to go back and start learning Embodying Moshiach again. I was like, I know the Rebbe said some really monumental things there, but I need to see it for myself again. I was like, what? I gotta figure out how to do this. Like, what? We need to be talking about this, right? We need to be having bring-ins about this, sessions at the kinus, workshops, like, the Rebbe, so that's all that's left to do now is reveal the Geulah. That's amazing. I'm figuring this out.
Hi.
Hi.
So good to be here.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to meet you.
Same.
I've heard a lot about you, and you and your husband are famous for really good things. So this is a very special opportunity. And I'm excited to get inspired about Moshiach. I really am. Can't say it's a topic that's easy for me.
Okay.
And Chaf Beis Shvat, to feel the feminine energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe tell me how you became this person.
A person who speaks about Moshiach and Geulah?
A person who speaks about Moshiach,
okay.
Yeah.
It's a great question. So, my husband and I became a Chabad in Nun Zion.
Wow.
Okay, so this was, 3 years after Gimel Tammuz? And we came in with a Mashiach mindset for sure. I feel like that's like a catchphrase, not Mashiach mindset, but like actually. Actually. And it was always something that we talked about and shared with our students. My husband's like a very visionary type person. So for him, it was like, of course, this is about something so much bigger than just, the here and the now. It's where are we going, So that was definitely always there. But I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was sleeping in Galus. Like, how was I not more awake about Moshiach and Geulah? So what happened was it was COVID, which I feel like that time period, a lot of people had an awakening. I had been scheduled to teach a class on Shar HaBatachan in my Chabad house. I was very excited about it. I was really prepared for it. And then COVID happened, and Manhattan was a ghost town. I have never, the stores were bordered up because there was like looting happening. It was like we left. We didn't live in Manhattan for 6 months. My students all left. My YPs all left. Everyone left.
Crazy.
So everything was online. There was no reason to be in Manhattan. So we went to Connecticut for 6 months and lived there. And I feel like it was like a real reset. It was just like a time to really think and
go
inward. But I was also supposed to teach Shar B'tachan. So I was like, I need to still teach this. And my husband had been doing these 2-minute clips just called the Daily Dose of Corn. And so I got the idea from him. And I'm like, I'm going to do 5-minute clips on Shar B'tachan. So I started doing that. I created an Instagram account. It's still there. It's called The Gate of Trust. And I just put out these 5-minute clips on Instagram on Shar B'tachan. Like I just went from the beginning of the Sefer through it.
Wow.
And started teaching about it. And what happened was I started to feel like I was always like one of those people who like notices hashluchos pratis and would talk about it, but it was like next level. I just felt so close to Hashem. I felt like I kept saying, I feel like a layer of the Simpson was peeled away. Like I felt, and then I just started to feel a real yearning to go back into the Nunafnan Beisichas and like really start learning Embodying Moshiach again. I was like, I know the Rebbe said some really monumental things there, but I need to see it for myself again, I was educated about it at the very beginning of my tshuva process. This is like fast forwarding like 20 years.
Wow.
And so, but right at that time, the Moshiach office came out with the Tut Alts campaign. And they put together these incredible classes on this Devar Malchus Kovitz. Are you familiar with that?
I saw some of them. Yeah, we did.
So basically what happened was after Kach Nissan, when the Rebbe said, the famous Sicha, like, I've done everything I can do all you can. And apparently, I don't know if I wasn't here at the time, the Hasidim were like, what do we do? Like, what does the Rebbe mean? Right?
Slight panic.
Total panic. Chaos.
Total
like,
panic.
Getting
Chaos.
together for bringing, like, trying to figure out, like, put our heads together and figure out what the Rebbe meant. So then a month later, I believe it was Tezria Matzara, the Rebbe said the direct way to bring Mashiach is to learn in Embodying Mashiach, right? Yeah. So then a chassid in Israel put together a kovetz of 4 sichas of the Rebbe on the last 2 chapters of Rambam
discussing that I've seen.
Melech HaMashiach and the Geulah, right? Because they're two sides of the
coin. Did the Rebbe hand those out?
So what happened was this chassid put it together and said, like, Rebbe, this is what I did because of what you said. And the Rebbe, I think, told Rabbi Korn he wants 10,000 copies made, like, that day. So that can be handed out that night, right?
Okay, so I have, my in-laws actually got a copy. So that was very special. I was able to learn
actual
from
original.
the handout.
Wow.
So I was able to learn from that with my husband, which is really special.
That is really special. Yeah. Wow. So so thank God Sichas in English worked together with Merkaz Mashiach office, and they translated it into English and made a booklet out of it. And then they put together a roster of classes on a website. And before I went into the Nanaf and Beisichas, this came out. So I actually started watching those classes and started creating 5-minute clips on those.
Oh, cool.
And that's how I got into Chayale Mashiach. And I have to say thank you to the Mashiach office because those classes literally helped me understand. Like, I think there's a lot of
confusion.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know the role of Mashiach and what the Geulah actually is.
100%. People are terrified of it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that all the time. Like, I'm just scared. I don't know what it is, and I'm scared.
Yeah. So I recommend to anyone who's scared about the Geulah to learn Achrei Mos Kadoshim from Nun Alef. The Rebbe basically addresses it. He says, I know some people are scared, and it's basically due to a misunderstanding about what Moshiach and Geulah actually is all about. And that it's not, that's, the famous idea, the Alef in the Geulah, right? Like that Geulah basically is, the building blocks of Geulah are Galus. It's just that you take this world and everything that's in it and you add the Alef, you add Hashem. That's Geulah. So the Rebbe basically says, life as you know it is not going to change. It's just going to be better and illuminated and full of the true purpose for which it is all created for. And therefore, if you're nervous about Mashiach, just look at your life and see where maybe you're a little misaligned with Hashem's will and just adjust a little bit.
Wow.
That's what the Rebbe basically says. It's an incredible sicha. And then it goes into Amar, which goes more into the idea of Alef.
So you went from Shar HaBitachon. That's kind of what got you your appetite.
Yes.
And then you found the Tud Alts, Sichas.
Correct. And then I realized after the Tud Alts was finished, it was like a 6-week program that I like watched all the classes and then not all of them because there's a ton, but I on each sicha I watched a few classes. Yeah, and then Rabbi Zirkin also did these like little sub classes on the sicha where he went into like deeper, like more side ideas, which I found really fascinating. Yeah, and then I got into the Nanaf and Beisichas and I went through the whole 11 months. So I have like my few that I love to quote because they're the ones that really stuck with me. I do have to say that some of them go over my head, and I felt like here I am. I committed to creating these 5-minute clips, and I think that anyone who's in filming Torah ideas knows 5-minute clips take hours. It's not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I was actually trying to keep up with the weekly sichas, like go through the 11 months in order.
Wow.
And each week produce a 5-minute idea. I at a certain point I was like, it's okay if I don't understand the whole sicha. I'm just going to extract something. And you can always gain something, right? You can always gain something. Yeah. Some of the sichas come together. I have to learn them a few times. It's not like, I'm not one of those people. My husband is like the type of person who can learn a sicha and like come away with a synopsis. And I'm like, how did you do that? It took me learning that sicha 6 times to understand what you just, like, it's just how his brain works. He's very good at that. So it does take me a while. But yeah, like there's always something. And then some of them, I'm like, whoa, how do I express this? I have to share this with the world. This is amazing, So I'll tell you, V'yishlach Nun Beis is a very tough sicha. I cannot say that I fully understand the sicha, but one thing the Rebbe said there that, like, this was life-changing for me, honestly, and it's what actually made me realize, like, whoa, I have to crack the code, because the Rebbe in that sicha says, okay, so this famous idea that everyone's talking about now, it's like all of a sudden everybody started talking about it, that the Vodas Habirurim is finished, right? Because we didn't even know that was why we were created until the Arizal came along and told us, right? The Arizal said, like, by the way, the Galus, you thought it was because of your sins, and obviously there's an element of that because we say it in our tefillahs, like we were exiled because of our sins. Right. So it's not like not a thing. But And the Rizal said, but the deeper reason why we went into exile, Hashem kind of pushed us into it because we had to do this avoda of refining the world, right? Elevating the sparks, right? So the Rebbe says, we're done, right? He says a few times in the later sichos, we're done elevating the sparks, right? Which, like, when you just hear that, it's like, okay, so now what? What? Okay, like, right? So Parshas V'yishlach, I think it's in Os Yud Gimel, in the 13th Os of the Sicha, the Rebbe says, we're done elevating the sparks. We're done refining the world. Therefore, if we find ourselves in Galus any longer, it is not because the world needs any more refining. It's because we have a special avoda in our generation to reveal the Geulah. I was like, what? I got to figure out how to do this. Like, what? We need to be talking about this, right? We need to be having bring-ins about this, sessions at the kinus, workshops. Like, the Rebbe said, that's all that's left to do now is reveal the Geulah. That's amazing. We have a special new avoda. I'm figuring this out. So, like, that was really my motivating. Okay, so, but that's like the one sentence in that sicha that I understand. If you tell me the rest of the sicha, I'm not, I can't necessarily explain it to you.
You got your marching orders.
I got my marching order, exactly. So,
it's so hard to digest. The world doesn't need any more refinement. How do you process that?
Yeah, okay. Let's say like you have like a cow, right? And you take the hide, right? And you do all the things that you have to do to make it into like this very supple piece of leather. And now it's like ready. It's ready to be like shipped off to like one of these designer brands to make it into a pocketbook, right? Or a belt or a coat. It's ready, but you actually have to do something with it. You know, it has to actually be made into a pocketbook, right? So the fact that the world is totally refined now and ready to be affected completely by the Jewish people, which the Rebbe says over and over and over again in so many different ways, it doesn't mean that it just automatically falls into place. That's why the Rebbe says we have to do the avoda. We have to do the avoda to reveal the Geulah. We have to do the avoda to show that the world is actually ready to go along with us, right?
I love that. That's a really good mashal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that have to do with like the feminine, right? Like, because that's what,
where did the woman come in?
Where does the right, like the feminine mode,
yeah.
Right? So let's talk about the Rebbetzin, okay? So all the stories that you hear about the Rebbetzin, when people would come and they would sit with her and they would meet with her, what did she do?
Honestly, the only thing that I know about the Rebbetzin is that if people were in her house, she made them feel very comfortable.
Okay, perfect, exactly. She made them feel comfortable, mainly because she focused on them, right? She would say, what type of music do you like? How's your family? Where are you from? So she made them comfortable because she made them feel important. She made them feel like, I care about you. And she's not putting on a show. She's a Rebbetzin. She's emistic. She actually wanted to know, who are you? What makes you tick? What do you like, right? That's very feminine. Why? Because now let's take it back to the world. Let's talk about before the world was refined, before the Vodas Haburim was finished, right? There was a very masculine mode needed, because when you're dealing with an antagonistic world, you have to fight with it, right? Like the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he went to, how did he deal with Russia? He would send people, give your wife a get, because like you might not come back alive, but we have to fight. We have to fight this war. We have to take down the evil, right? We have to finish off the Gullus.
Like a literal battle.
An actual battle with a dark world that is actually doesn't like
resisting.
It's a lot. Yes, exactly. Tremendous amount of resistance. And so it requires a masculine energy. So the Rebbe is telling us that the world is ready. The world's literally ready. The Geulah is ready to be revealed. You just have to actually believe me, right? You have to actually believe me when I tell you the world will work with you. And that's what I wanted to say about Parshas Korach Nanaf, which is my, like, if you could say, a favorite sicha. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. Everything the Rebbe says is amazing.
You're allowed to have a favorite. I give you permission.
Thank you. But where the Rebbe says there, the Rebbe literally says, if you do your avoda properly, which the Rebbe already told us is to reveal the Geulah, if you do your avoda properly, the world will assist you. The non-Jews will help you. They will go along with you, right? Because we're no longer dealing with an antagonistic world. So it might seem like it's antagonistic, but it's just a facade. It's not real anymore. So what I hear when the Rebbe says the Avodas Haburim is finished is, okay, yeah, it doesn't mean that you don't have work to do. And it doesn't mean that it might not sometimes be challenging. But it's not the Mesiras Nefesh the Frierdiker Rebbe was dealing with. It's just not. So if you work hard enough and you really believe, you can coast out of the world. It's true nature now that it is ready to assist us. And that's what the Rebbetzin embodied. That's a very feminine mode, right?
Interesting. So we have the transition to a world that's not resisting redemption. And I'm hearing what you're saying is not resisting the message of the Jewish people.
Well, it might seem like it is, but it's not a true resistance.
Not a
deep
deep resistance like communist Russia resistance,
Correct.
Like World War II, like real opposition.
Right. And who showed us this the most? The Rebbe. He
Right.
said, go out into the world and look what will happen. And people were very resistant at the beginning when the Rebbe sent people out on shluchos. They didn't want to leave their Chol of Yisrael milk and their family Shabbos table and like finally they're comfortable. No one's chasing them. Now that the world's not actually opposing us, let's go make the world the place that we were supposed to make it in the first place.
We have religious freedom. We have support. We have the opportunities. Let's take advantage. Or let's give everyone what they always really wanted from us.
Yeah.
So, and you're saying the resistance that we see, I know now people do feel like there's anti-Semitism, there is an actual war.
Right. So it's a little bit of a delicate topic, but what's going on in Eretz Yisrael right now, right? How did the Rebbe tell us that we should handle Eretz Yisrael? Did he tell us, go give your wife a get and go fight a war in Eretz Yisrael? No. The way that the Rebbe told us to deal with Eretz Yisrael is the way you deal with a bully in a classroom. What is psychology saying about a bully in a classroom? Are they really actually a horrible person on the inside? Or do they just need you to put them in their place? Right? So what happens if you have a bully in a classroom? You band together the whole classroom and you show them that they're not gonna run the show. You know, we're gonna band together, we're gonna support each other, and we're gonna put you in your place. And what eventually happens is they go cower in a corner and they realize that they're really broken inside and that they really want to be a part of the class. And they just didn't know how. They didn't know how to join the class. So they felt like the only way I could feel safe here is if I bully you. But if you don't let them bully you, then eventually they join you. They become your friend, right? So I know it's very hard to imagine the Middle East becoming our friend right now. And I'm not saying that there's not certain maybe particular individuals that, you know, maybe there's still a little bit of like the wiping out of Amalek that needs to happen. But for the most part, if we are strong, the Rebbe told us, you won't even need to have a war, right? If you just show them that you're not going to negotiate with them, and the Rebbe also said, like building up Judea and Samaria, right? Just don't even make a big deal out of it. You don't need the approval of the nations of the world. Just do it quietly and strategically, and just do it. Just build up the land, own your land. Have strong borders, don't negotiate with terrorists, and eventually they're going to realize they need you and they're going to want to work with you.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same idea.
Yeah. I think we're so used to Jewish people. We know how to handle oppression. We know how to handle resistance. I always feel like we're so good at suffering. Like, Jews are really good at, like, we know how to cook the meals and give the hugs and sing the songs. Like, we've perfected the art of suffering. I really feel that about us as a nation.
Yeah.
We know it. We're familiar with it. We know how to support each other through it. And the hardest is what you're describing is a whole paradigm shift of you don't have any enemies. It's almost like we're just like, kind of like that avodas berurim reaction, like, wait, what do we do when we don't have enemies? Like, how does this work? Like, I don't know what's going to be on my schedule today. You know, I have to fight anti-Semitism and I have to, you know, cry about something that it's just so, I think we've internalized that modality so much. It's such a shift to live in a redemptive space.
So the way I see anti-Semitism in our time is that it's just the bully in the classroom, like begging us to put them in their place. The Rebbe, you know, speaks about, well, he quotes the Arizal, right, saying that we're the generation that left Mitzrayim, right, and that the righteous women in that generation are the women of our generation, and that we're really going to lead
the Geulah.
Lead into the Geulah, right? I think it's also because it's a little easier, I think, for women to have that trust that if the Rebbe said this is the reality, that that's what it is.
Why do you think so?
I think women have a little bit more of an easier time trusting, a little bit more of a natural bittul. You know, that's been my experience also, like with these sichas. And on this, by the way, I just want to say that the new feminism now is like hating on men. That is not a Torah idea, obviously. Like that goes without saying here, right? I think just a trust and an inner ability to sort of say, oh, that's a little different than I always understood things. Okay, like I think women just have more. They have more bina. They have that ability to. Like if they understood something a little differently, I think they have an easier time being flexible and shifting their understanding.
Yeah, so I think the masculine energy is more designed for the battle.
Yeah. Conquer,
combat.
Yeah.
Endurance.
Correct.
And feminine energy is more related to nurture. So if we're talking about something that already exists and it needs to be like nurtured into its full self, then that sounds feminine. I think also when we talk about feminine energy and masculine energy, we're not talking about really men or women. We're talking about like
a
modality, you know, for we're all as a Jewish people, you can correct me on this, but we're all as a Jewish people the feminine in our relationship with Hashem, men and women.
Correct.
So, I mean, that applies to all of us equally.
For sure. And also when you talk about like having an influence on someone in a feminine way, to influencing someone is a masculine mode because man is a giver and woman is a receiver. So even if you're a woman having an influence in another woman, the one who's having the influence is in a masculine mode and the one who's receiving the influence is in a feminine mode, because femininity is about receiving and then taking what you receive and it arouses in you a whole new level of avoda. So like, for example, like, let's say the Rebbetzin was sitting with a person and she was speaking to them about like what type of music you like, right? So she's bringing out that person's love of music. And then when that person then realizes, oh, I do love music, let me channel that into, you know, finding out what music the Rebbetzin likes and going home and listening to that. I'm just giving a silly example, but so she now brought out in them, oh yeah, I do love that. And actually I want to channel it like this, right? That's the feminine mode of like realizing what's how do you say it? It's like when someone arouses what's in you to come to the surface, right? Like when you plant a seed, that's masculine. And then when the earth produces a tree, that's feminine.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
So it's the process of birth where you cultivate and birth the essence that was already there.
Right.
So what I'm hearing you say is if we talk about Mashiach as we're taking the reality as we know it and we are aligning it with Hashem.
Yeah.
So we're bringing out something that's already here, which is a feminine process of cultivating, nurturing, fertilizing. So can you share some examples? Like, give me that in real time.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's examine what the Rebbe did for the past, for the whole Nesias of the Rebbe, where he sent shluchim out, right? So if you go to a town, right? So again, if we're going back to like the previous generations, you go to a town, you huddle, you make a little shtibel, you make sure that you're surrounded by your fellow Jew and you stay away from everyone else, right? But that's not what we do, right? We go out to a town, we find the local Jews, we knock on their doors. They seem like they don't want to hear from us. We go home, we bake them a challah. We bring all to our Jewish neighbors a challah. Our husbands go to the local, town hall and get to know the mayor and start, convincing him that it would be wonderful if they have religious equality in their town. And then all of a sudden they've got a menorah up and, someone else is, offering them, a piece of property at a good price to build their shul. And the women in the town are getting together and they're baking challahs, even though, 10 weeks ago they told you that they have nothing to do with their Judaism and they don't even want to meet you, right? So I'm saying like that's it means that you take an entire community that looks like it has nothing to do with Yiddishkeit, and you just bring out in it that like actually the mayor wants to assist you, and all the Jewish ladies were just waiting for you to move there so that they can have their Neshei Chabad in their neighborhood. And like, that's what it means. It's just, but if you approach that town as if you come in with like an antagonistic approach, or approach of like, they don't actually really want me here, then they might, then you might
feel that way.
Yeah. And then you might just, tap into the part of them that's resistant. But if you come in with like total confidence, which is incredible the way the Rebbe instilled in us that confidence, right? We just need to take it to the next level. It's interesting, actually. Chaf Beis Shvat Sicha from Nun Beis. By the way, another plug. I think every shlucha needs, and shliach, needs to learn Chayasar Nun Beis, Chaf Beis Shvat Nun Beis. They're literally like husband-wife sichas. They're the last sichas that the Rebbe gave to the shluchim. In this Chaf Beis Shvat sicha, actually, it's so incredible. So the Rebbe says over there that in our generation, there are basically 3 stages, okay? So 3 stages. The Rebbe says there that there's really nothing left. Really, the Rebbe says there, and in Chayasar, there's really nothing left except to accept Mashiach. To prepare the world to accept Mashiach, the Rebbe says it in different languages in both the sichas. Fine. So then the Rebbe says, so the Rebbe says that we basically had 3, So the Rebbe says that our generation is the last generation of Galus, naturally then the first generation of Geulah, and we have 3 stages in our generation. One was the Friedrich Rebbe basically like kind of finishing off the Galus. He gives dates, so you know exactly what. The Rebbe doesn't say the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe, and then the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe basically gives dates. He says, Yud Shvat, in the year Yud, we've basically finished off the Avodah of Galus. Then in Yud Alef Shvat, in the year, specifically Yud Alef, we started, and the Rebbe basically gives the tekufa of that until the Rebbetzin yartzeit. Mm-hmm. So I think it was Mem Ches. We're in the Avodah of, and the Rebbe uses the number 11, which the Rebbe equates with himself, but he basically said that we're in the time period where basically Geulah energy, if I could say it, I'm trying to find the right words, is basically imposed on the world. The world was ready for it because the Friedrich Rebbe finished off the Avodah of Galus, but
it was top down.
I needed to schlep you. Basically, the Rebbe said, I needed to force you to go on shluchas. Let's be honest here. You guys were not so easy to convince, right? It was basically like the Rebbe convincing us that the world was ready and that we can do this. And I mean, just what the Rebbe did. Like,
and leading by example.
Correct. Yes.
Demonstrating.
And pushing and like convincing us to that it's really, that the world's really ready for this. So the Rebbe then says, but then after the Rebbetzin passed away, it's a whole new tekufa of the world actually really embodying the Rebbe, like not the Rebbe forcing himself on us, like making us do the shluchos, but that it shall come from us.
I would say the prime example and the easiest example, because it's really like the first big change and transformation, revolution that the Rebbe did, which was send out shluchim.
Yeah.
And I think now what you're saying is we're even going past that, and maybe you'll have some examples for that, which is now shluchas feels, I think, for most people, shluchas feels like, okay, that I get it. Like we've seen a lot of people do it. The shluchas model has been solidified. The Chabad houses, people know about Chabad. Chabad, thank God, is super popular, has a good reputation. Like it's everywhere. Everyone knows about it. And everyone's very comfortable with that.
Yeah. We got very comfortable.
We got very comfortable with that. And I know because I teach high school, and I feel my students are already pushing past that, which is, first of all, not everybody necessarily knows if they're going to go on traditional shluchos, right. For whatever reason. And also because I get the sense that people feel like there's already more. There's like the next stage. Like when something feels like settled and good, you know that like we're ready to uncover phase 3, which is how you said it was, now we're ready to embody the Rebbe. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, and this is actually what I was trying to say before about women. I don't know if it came across, is that, again, it's actually really believing that what the Rebbe is telling us, the reality is real. Because when you actually believe something, you're going to live with it in a whole new way. If you actually believe that the world is ready to go along with the Jewish people and support us in going to the land of Israel with Moshiach, like that, the whole world is ready to support us, you're just going to treat the world very differently. So I think that, I don't even necessarily think that the avoda changed, because what the Rebbe basically says in the Chaf Beit Shvat Sicha is everything that I taught you all along, that's what you need to do, but now it needs to come from you. You have to actually really believe it. It's not just me pushing you. Yeah, of course the Rebbe is there supporting and pushing from behind the scenes, but we have to actually really believe it. We have to embody it. So it doesn't have to be, in the Chayei Sicha, the Rebbe says everybody's ultimately a shliach, shlucha, shliach. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a traditional shluchos. It's in your life with your children and your family and in your school, in your workplace, wherever you are, actually believing the whole world was created to support the Jewish mission, which is really us serving God in this world. The world was created for that purpose. So if we actually believe that, and there's literally nothing that can stand in the way of that. Yeah, I have to believe it.
It's very powerful. You mentioned before that we're the woman that left Mitzrayim, and I think that one of the main characteristics that the Rebbe shares with us about those women is that they had their tambourines all along.
Yeah, yeah.
And we also know that they encouraged their husbands to have children, even in the darkness of Galus.
Right.
So they were very much set on freedom, very much set on redemption.
Yeah.
And we could be doing things because, I've heard people say, like, I want Mashiach because the Rebbe wants Mashiach, and I want to make the Rebbe proud, and I want to make the Rebbe happy. Like, I was just reading somewhere, somebody was going by dollars, and he said, Rebbe, I just want to do whatever it is that you want. And there was like, that I want Mashiach. I've been pretty clear about that. It's not like a secret what I want. But it's not, that's I'm doing it because the Rebbe wants it now, and the Rebbe believes it. So when does it become something that I can say I want and I believe? And I think that's what we're up to now.
Yeah. And it's not just about, again, what does Mashiach come to teach the world? That the world was created for us to serve God in it, and that Torah and mitzvahs are what creates reality. So it's also about actually really believing that the best life is a Torah life. The best life is doing mitzvahs. The best life, and it will be even better when we have the Beis HaMikdash and when we're all in Eretz Yisrael. So I don't think that it's not anything new. It's what we've always done, but understanding what it actually was always all about and where we're at and where we're going, So also actually really believing that when you cover your hair, you bring brachas to your family, just even though in those simple things, like I always tell my kids, I'm like, if they say, if they're happy about something, that like something came through for them, I'm like, you should be, because sometimes they make fun of the way I wear my tichel, because like I always make sure my hair is like fully covered. So I wear my tichel like half down my forehead, and my kids like laugh at me about it. And I'm like, a lot of the brachas you have in your life are because I do this. So you might think I look crazy, but
You're reaping the benefits.
Yeah, actually believing that.
I think confidence in being Jewish and in Yiddishkeit and in Torah and in the messages that Torah brings to the world. And what's really important, what you said before, is when you come with confidence, then you're received well. And when you come with insecurity, then you're doubted. So sometimes people have never had that. They're like, no, it doesn't work, or that's not true. I have resistance, or I have resistance in my own family or resistance in my own life. And that might be because of your own perspective, like the energy that you are coming with.
Yeah.
If you come feeling really, really secure about it, this is the truth. I know it. I feel it. I've seen it in my own life. And it's your truth too. I'm just, giving you what you already know and what you already believe and see. It's really taking all the fear out of it.
I'm doing a session on Shar B'Tachan on Shabbos at the kinus with one of the women who's presenting is Chani Brandt. And so she was telling me how I thought this was so brilliant. She has, she takes the 7, if you look, and I think it's chapter 3 of Shar B'Tachan, where Rabbeinu B'Chaya goes into 7 qualities that only Hashem has, right? Like you can't really trust anyone unless they have these 7 qualities, and only Hashem embodies all of them, right? So she said something brilliant. She said when she sits with people and when she teaches a class, she tells them, analyze these 7 qualities And when you feel a blockage, you'll know that's where that's the one you need to work on, right? Like if you're struggling with, well, what she basically said is if you're struggling with bitachon, analyze those 7 qualities. So the worst is when you look at those 7 and you're like, wow, I struggle with all of these. Just kidding. But I remember looking at them and being like, wow, I need to work more on my bitachon. I feel like blockages on a few. But I thought that was so practical.
Yeah.
So I
remember being very struck by those actually. And because the Shar B'tachon doesn't present them as like, these are the qualities of Hashem.
Right.
They present them as, if you are going to trust in somebody, they need to have these 7 qualities. And when you're in the, I think it's the second one, even, just like 2, you're like, 1 second, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
No human being has this capacity.
Exactly.
I think the most important thing that you're sharing, and I know this from being in the chinuch environment, which shluchos, chinuch, it's all the same thing, educating ourselves, our children, our communities, is the sense of you can't share something that you don't have.
Right. Right.
And what you've shared, which is amazing, is that you were very determined and very perseverant. Like you just have to jump into the texts themselves. And we can't believe in a message that the Rebbe gave us if we don't even know what that message is.
Right.
So it sounds like the first step is to actually just learn the sichos.
Yes. Even if they're hard,
even
and you
if
only
they're
take
hard.
A little out of it, just learn the sichos.
Just learn the sichos. And like you said, not every sicha you understood fully, and not every sicha you were able to get the whole thing, but you'll get something
Correct.
Amazing, something that you want to shout out to the whole world.
Yes. And by the way, the earlier sichos are easier for sure, but I understand them so much better now. Because now that I actually understand the role of Moshiach and what the Geulah is, everything the Rebbe says makes so much more sense to me. Like it all fits into place because Chassidus is the Torah of Geulah. The Rebbe said that Torah Chadasha already started in Yates Kislev in a sicha from Nun Beis, Yates Kislev Nun Beis. The Rebbe said Torah Chadasha already started Yates Kislev. So everything makes more sense once. So I'm not even saying like isolate the Nun Af Nun Beis sichas and only learn those. Definitely learn them. At least Chaya Sarah and Chafei Shvat, please. But definitely learn them. But then it puts everything else the Rebbe said into context also.
Like you really understand what's happening here. You really
Correct.
Understand Chassidus. Chassidus was always about Mashiach.
Always.
From day one.
Correct.
Even when you were talking, I was thinking, when you're saying like there's no resistance, that's like the concept of Pada B'Shalom. You brought up Yates Kislev.
Yes.
Like there isn't a real opposition.
Right.
I think about that a lot. It's a very, very powerful, it's a very powerful way to be and to live.
Right. Like ultimately, and it's funny actually, I never understood that idea of Pada B'Shalom until this year when I was learning a mimer on it, because I was like, but wait, like the Alter Rebbe did meet a lot of opposition actually, So it's like, wait, what does that mean? But the Rebbe explains it doesn't mean that there's not resistance along the way. It just means that the ultimate Pada B'Shalom is when the whole world goes with you, when the world responds and actually supports you. And that's the ultimate goal. The goal is not the masculine mode. The goal is the feminine mode of like, we bring the world with us. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the Pada B'Shalom.
Yeah, it's so powerful. The concept of, it says that Isha Tesovev Gever, that like in the times of Geulah, literally translated as like a woman will surround her husband, or like in the sense of like Eshes Chayale Tzukernik, like a woman will be a crown for her husband. How do you see that fitting in?
Well, I mean, I think it's everything that we've been speaking about. It's just that, again, masculine and feminine work together. Can't have one without the other. But I think it's like everything that we've been talking about, the Pada B'Shalom, the fact that the world is ready and receptive. So it's no longer about the masculine needing to dominate the feminine. It's the feminine leading the way, saying, I always wanted this. This is what it's all about. Like, I'm so on board. I'm ready, And so that excitement of that feminine energy where the world is saying, yes, we want to support the Jewish people. This is what we were created for. So it's not about imposing. It's about bringing out what the world is all about. So then that inspires the male also to be able to give more, right? Because like in the muscle of like masculine and feminine. When the woman is very receptive to her husband, it empowers him, and then he wants to keep giving, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same way. It's like the masculine mode doesn't go away. It's just that when the world is
much
very
more empowered.
Yeah. So when the feminine is sort of bringing out in the masculine, then it creates this like never-ending cycle of giving and receiving into the Geulah for eternity. Like it's an incredible idea when you think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, when you just comparing it to the feminine, the culture of what the attempts at strengthening women, feminist concept, like how do you put that in here?
Well, I mean, I think it's the Rebbe just is incredible, obviously. I mean, like, I love the Rebbe. I became frum because of the Rebbe. So,
how could you not?
Yeah,
He's the best.
yeah. So, by the way, it all ties in because what we were saying about the Rebbetzin, right? She looks at a person and she connects with them, right? Brings out who are you? What are you all about? What type of music do you like? Who's your family? Who are you, right? And okay, maybe it needs a little tweaking, so the person on their own can make their adjustments, right?
Yeah.
So what does the Rebbe say about the feminist movement? Do you say, this is nonsense, let's squash them, this is ridiculous, this is against the Torah? No, the Rebbe said they're picking up on something. They're onto something. It's just, okay, they're getting it a little wrong. Let's tweak it a little bit.
Move it slightly.
That's a very feminine mode, is to say, no, we don't need to squash this, right? The way a mother would say about a child who's a little wild. No, he needs to just go run in the backyard and get his energy out. Don't worry, Tati. Like, you don't need it. Don't be hard on him. It's fine. Like, he just needs an outlet.
Yeah.
So that's it. So, I mean, it's obvious, that they're picking up on something. So it's interesting what's happening with the feminist movement as it went from men and women need to be equal to like men are horrible and like masculine toxicity or something like that, right? Like, so obviously it's misguided. It's distorted, but they're obviously picking up on this idea that we're talking about. And we just have to, the more we own it and understand it from a Torah perspective, derech mamela, the world's going to come around. I don't know how it'll happen. It seems like, oh my gosh, like how are we going to get the whole world on board? Like, okay, the world's ready, but the Rebbe said that it could happen so fast. If we just realize the power that we have because the Vodas Abiram is finished, and this is, maybe we could finish with this idea. So I was just reading, was it here in this pamphlet they gave us? I can't remember where I read it. No. You know where it was? Sichas in English put out this book many, many years ago called Dynamic Partner in Creation. I was looking at that also. And it was saying there that that one of the things that happens in Gullus is that the divine flow, which is like a masculine flow, which then is received by the world, which is, the idea of the feminine, there's like a blockage, like it doesn't fully like flow in. And that really is the definition of Gullus, is that there's like a break in the flow. So like, for example, our mitzvahs don't automatically affect the world, right? Like there's this like pause. But in our generation, that doesn't exist anymore. So our efforts can bear immediate fruits. Even sometimes we're impatient, so it feels like it doesn't happen right away. But I feel like the Rebbe's like, don't be so impatient. It's happening very fast. Trust me, right? But so when the Rebbe is saying that, if we will just do our avoda properly, the whole world will assist us and go along with us, or like the Rebbe said, like Moshiach will come and take us to Yerushalayim like in an instant, in the snap of a finger, or like the Rebbe quotes the Rambam, one deed can tip the scales. This is why, because it's not a blockage anymore of the flow of energy. So like if we just do our avoda properly, like things can move really fast. And that is a message that I also want to share, because I feel like when we start talking about like we have to delve into the sichas and we have to figure this out, I feel like the world's big and we're small, and like how can our little bits of efforts to figure out how to reveal the Geulah, how is that actually going to cause the whole world to turn around? And Rebbe says like in one moment we'll find ourselves on the clouds because the world is so ready and we see. And I think that's also why COVID caused such an awakening, because people saw like in one moment the whole world could shift, like just like that, right? And just like made that,
gave a visual for that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful point to end off with, which is we sometimes get overwhelmed. I mean, I get overwhelmed, like, how are we going to bring Moshiach? And like, if we're coming at it with like stressful energy or pressure energy, so like that's already not Mashiach vibes. Going with the world is ready. Like the ground is fertilized. And yes, your individual avodah, just by one person being an example, personally embodying it, I think, people see that. People are drawn to that. Look, you were brought here for this conversation and you're getting this reputation. Oh, she's somebody that's like catching on to the Mashiach ideas. It attracts. Light attracts. Right. So another woman decides, you know what? I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get around it, start to internalize the ideas, think about them, becomes a conversation. Yeah. And it does. You get that picking
domino
up
effect.
The domino effect, the ripple effect. So I just had this image like Mashiach's gonna come, we're gonna think back to this conversation. We're like this definitely helped.
Amen.
I want to hear just if you could give me an example of you're learning these sichos, like a personal internal shift or something that something in your life you saw differently or something you felt differently about in your shluchos, an interaction that changed because of it, like very, very much in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that learning in Geulah Mashiach, first of all, it really helped me understand the power of my mitzvahs. Like for me, the biggest transformation it had on me personally is that I actually really see how my mitzvahs are affecting my life. That I have a better life because I'm living a life of Torah and mitzvahs. The Rebbe says in a sicha on a Hanukkah time, there's this idea that the body is going to enliven the soul, right? So I never understood what that meant. So the Rebbe says it's two things. Says number one, when you give Hanukkah gelt to kids, it's going to make them want to connect to the Rebbeim that instituted this custom, right? What does that mean? That means that the gelt, the physical money, is inspiring them to then want to have his kashrus. That's body inspiring soul, not the other way around. Cholent in shul makes people want to then daven. That's physical, enlivening, spiritual. That's one leading to the other, right? So the Rebbe says that the reason why we're going to go willingly to Yerushalayim with Geulah is because we're going to be able to take our houses with us. Really? No, really, the Rebbe says it. And he wasn't saying it like in a facetious way or like in a cynical way. He's saying like, actually. So, but why am I mentioning this? Because we as people, we're Gashmiistic people. As much as we might want to think we're very spiritual, we're darshvi, we're physical. We need good Gashmias. It's just how we are. Look at this beautiful office here. I'm saying the nice chairs. This is very our generation. So we want to know that our lives are going to be good. For me, I think realizing that this whole world was created so that we could serve God in it and do Torah and mitzvahs in it made me realize that Torah and mitzvahs literally make my life better. I'm not giving anything up. My life is good because of the mitzvahs I do, and I start to see the correlation. So I start to see, when I'm more careful with this mitzvah, things work out. When I daven and I don't go on WhatsApp before I daven, which is an avoda, to not look at my phone before I daven in the morning, I have a better day. I'm less anxious. Like those are like the practical examples for me, is that I literally see that. I don't think that there's any way to truly influence others except to just be an example yourself. I think there's not like a checklist of what you could say to another person, or you can just love Torah and mitzvahs yourself and actually believe that it's the best life, and that is going to have an impact on others.
It's, I think, important and also beautiful to see that what it looks like to be connecting with Mashiach is to be connecting more with your Yiddishkeit, literally, like
100%.
To connecting more with the mitzvahs that you're doing, feeling more comfortable doing mitzvahs, feeling more like this is me, like it's natural for me to do mitzvahs, and I feel good about doing these mitzvahs, and I want to do them. And again, that's also the difference, I think, between like maybe previous generations and our generations, the type of Yetzer Hara, if you want to say, where it was more of an imposing, the style of Judaism. Like if you want to talk about the concept of iskafia, where it was more about the resistance or the imposing or very top heavy, even in education. And now it's like, you'll like tamur ukitayv havaya, like Torah is beautiful. You'll love it. You'll feel good learning it. The mitzvahs will enhance you, literally your mind, your heart, your body, everything will feel more you.
Yes, 100%.
We've been trying to get a shir going in my house to learn the learn in Yana Geulah Moshiach, and I feel like now I'm going to be much more committed to actually making it happen. So this, I'm also finding out that the Alef is this great resource for people that want to feel very inspired about Moshiach and want to teach about it to your communities. So the Alef sends out essentially a class, a weekly class that you could teach. And it's done in a really, really user-friendly way. So look out for it. It's an incredible resource. You get these classes and you get to share the beauty and the joy and the magic of Moshiach.
Yeah, I've done it before. And it's what's great about these sheets that the Alef sends out is that you can use it as it is, and then it's not a very long class if you like to do something a little bit more bite-sized. Or you can elaborate on it because they give sources. So you can go look things up yourself and you can build upon it. So if you want something ready-made, it's usable as is. And if you want to
do like an advanced track, amazing. That's
correct.
So cool.
Yeah. It's really amazing. So thank you to the Alef for all your
check that out.
Work. Yeah,
and thank you. This was amazing.
Yeah, I'm really happy we did it.
I'm inspired.